The front door opened before I even reached it, but not for me. A stranger stepped out holding a steaming coffee mug. He waved at someone down the street, then disappeared back inside the house I grew up in. My name is Elise Tran. I'm 32 years old. I manage multi-phase housing developments for a firm based in Seattle. I make decisions that affect skylines, but I couldn't stop them from selling the one building that ever felt like mine. They didn't tell me. I found out from a wedding slideshow. It was playing during the rehearsal dinner. Soft music, warm lighting, photos of my younger sister Amelia and her fiancé twirling in picturesque vineyards. Then came the house. Our house. The same blue clapboard siding, the same white latticework Dad and I installed the summer I turned 13. Only now the caption said, "Sold to fund forever." No photo of me, not even in the background, just her, and the house I was supposed to inherit. The room clapped, champagne flutes clinked. I excused myself without a sound. 2 hours later, I drove through the old neighborhood. I hadn't planned to, but my hands had a mind of their own, and now I was here, staring at the porch light that used to guide me home, feeling like a trespasser on my own childhood. No one thought to mention they sold it. Not when I visited for Thanksgiving. Not during the endless phone calls about Amelia's centerpieces, her signature cocktails, her vows. I'd been helping quietly, paying for a few vendors when they hit budgeting hiccups. They never said where the rest of the money came from. Turns out, it came from history. From me. Mom once told me, years ago, "When we're gone, this house will be yours. You're the one who always cared about it." She said it over tea, the good china set, reserved for guests, not daughters, while wrapping leftovers in foil. I nodded, believing her. Not because I needed the house, but because it meant I had a place in their future. Apparently not. Amelia was always the star. I learned early how to dim myself so she could shine without competition. Straight A's didn't matter when she made the cheer team. Job offers didn't impress them the way her engagement ring did. I never fought it. I just pulled back further. But this was different. They hadn't just excluded me. They erased me. They removed me from the future we once talked about. Sold the one space where I still felt tethered. The new owners had a different welcome mat now. The Grangers, home sweet home. I stared at it through the windshield, parked just far enough to remain unnoticed, my headlights off, the engine running quiet. Inside, the man turned off the living room lamp. Through the window, I glimpsed what used to be our green couch. Gone. Now it was all beige and chrome, stylish, sterile. The family room had once held a crooked bookshelf I built in high school woodshop. I ran my hand along its top every time I passed it, tracing the tiny nick I carved on accident. I doubted they kept it, probably tossed it with the rest. I didn't knock. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my phone and tapped the email app, pulled up a blank draft. Subject line, Property Title Inquiry, 1446 Beach Lane. I wouldn't go through the front door. I'd go through escrow. People forget I work in real estate. They forget I know how to form trusts, negotiate contracts, close quietly. They forget I sit across from sellers every week, people like my parents who just want it done fast. They thought I'd never know. They thought I'd accept it, smile through it, as always. But something had changed. It wasn't grief. It wasn't even rage. It was stillness. Cold, useful stillness. The kind you need to make real decisions. There was a time I would have asked why they did it. Now I didn't care. I only cared about what I would do next. I looked at the porch again. Then at the mailbox. My last name was once on that box, in chipped gold letters. It would be again. And when they walked back into that house, they wouldn't be guests of memory. They'd be guests of mine. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't punish. I would simply show them what permanence looks like. The room shimmered under string lights and soft music, as if betrayal could be staged like theater. A rented barn, polished until it gleamed, filled with people I hadn't seen since childhood. And there they were, my parents, laughing like they hadn't signed away 30 years of my life in exchange for peonies and Prosecco. Amelia stood under a canopy of fairy lights, lifting a glass. Her dress sparkled, her smile sparkled. She said the words with practiced modesty, like she didn't know they'd break skin. This day wouldn't be possible without the endless support of my amazing parents. They gave us everything, even the roof over their heads. Laughter, applause, a few misty eyes. My mother clutched her pearls like she was in a holiday commercial. My father raised his glass toward the crowd. Selling the old house wasn't easy, but we knew it was time. It was a gift to Amelia's new chapter. And just like that, the home I was promised became a punchline, background noise to someone else's celebration. I watched from the back table. My place card said, Elise Tran, family. Not maid of honor, not even sister of the bride, just a placeholder with blood ties. The servers came around with champagne. I declined. Behind me, Uncle Raymond chuckled. Bet you're glad you're not footing this bill, huh? I turned slightly, met his eyes. They used my savings last year, I said quietly. Paid off some debts with it. I guess they were just getting started. He blinked, shifted uncomfortably, said nothing. That was always the way of things. People preferred the illusion. They liked their stories neat. Eldest daughter, independent. Younger daughter, cherished. Parents, generous and glowing. No one asked what happened between the lines. I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I counted exits. After dinner, Amelia made her way to me. Not to thank me, not to check in, but to gloat, disguised as gratitude. I know this must be a lot, she said, placing her manicured hand on my shoulder. I just want you to know. It meant so much to have you here. You didn't have to come. I met her eyes. You're right, I didn't. Her smile froze for a second, then rebooted, perfectly polite. Well, Mom said you were traveling so much lately. I just figured you'd be used to not staying anywhere too long. It was casual, cruel without being obvious, a cheap swipe at the life I built, flipping the narrative. I was transient. She was grounded. I was career. She was commitment. I was replaceable. She was irreplaceable. I stood. The music swelled as the dance floor opened. I walked out without looking back. Outside, the air cut through the satin of my dress. I didn't care. Across the lot, my father stood with a group of his friends, laughing, telling stories, performing the role he'd rehearsed all his life, proud patriarch, selfless father, giver of homes. He caught my eye, raised a hand. I didn't return it. Let him explain that. The ride back to the hotel was silent. I stared at the lights of passing towns, thinking about the renovations I'd seen online. The listing had mentioned modernized kitchen, upgraded HVAC, custom lighting. None of that mattered. The bones were still there. The memory of my initials etched under the bathroom sink was still there. The mark I made when I slipped painting my room violet at 16. The hollow under the floorboard where I hid birthday cards. They sold it for 25% under value, in a hurry, a private cash buyer. I knew because I checked the records the next morning, and I knew as soon as I saw the signature, Dad's underseller, I'd buy it back. But I wouldn't do it in my name. I'd use a trust, a shell company with no trace to me, because this wasn't just about ownership. It was about clarity, about showing them what it feels like when someone else gets to decide the story you live in. The next day, over brunch, my mother slid an envelope across the table. "A small thank you," she said. "We couldn't have done this without you covering the florist last minute." I opened it. A gift card. $200. I left it on the table. No drama, no scene, just arithmetic. What they owed me couldn't be paid in gift cards and toasts. What they took couldn't be measured in dollars. But what I'd take back? That would be impossible to ignore. I didn't ask them why. I didn't bring it up on the phone, not when my mother called to ask if I could take a quick look at a contract for Amelia's honeymoon villa. Not when my father texted me a blurry photo of the wedding cake design with the caption, "Classic or boring." I played along. I said the right things, because asking for the truth from people who have already rewritten it only makes you look unstable. The escrow report told me everything. 2 weeks after Amelia's fiancé proposed, my parents contacted a private buyer. They listed the house under a temporary LLC, likely to avoid public interest or neighbor gossip. The deed was signed over in less than a month. Closed within 6 weeks. Sale price, $486,000. Direct transfer. No listing. No agents. That number meant something to me. It was roughly what they owed in combined credit card debt, unpaid taxes, and, I now realized, the estimated total cost of a premium wedding with 100 guests, live band, designer gown, and an open bar. They'd liquidated the one promise they'd ever made me. And not just any promise. This wasn't some family heirloom or symbolic gesture. This was the house. My house. The one they said would always be there. The one they told me I could raise my own family in someday. "We'll keep it for you," Mom had whispered once after Amelia left for college. "She's not sentimental like you." But apparently, sentimentality has a market price. The betrayal wasn't in the paperwork. It was in the silence. In the fact that they didn't even warn me. Didn't offer a conversation, an explanation, a moment to say goodbye to the home where I learned to ride a bike, failed my first math test, snuck out of for the first and only time. They erased all of it with a single transaction. The worst part wasn't even that they sold it. It was that they celebrated it. Photos of Amelia in her wedding dress standing on the front porch, the same porch I painted every spring, circulated in family group chats with captions like, "What a magical farewell," as if the house had volunteered, as if it had died in noble service to her union. I called my friend Sasha, an estate attorney in Portland. "I need to purchase a property quietly," I told her. "I want full control, and I don't want my name on anything public." She didn't ask questions, just sent me a list of shell entity templates and a referral to a buyer's agent who specialized in non-disclosure closings. That night, I ordered takeout and sat cross-legged on my living room floor, going through old photos. Not of my family, of the house, the walls, the archway between the dining room and kitchen that I used to twirl through during dinner cleanup, the cracked tile by the back door, the pencil marks on the closet frame that tracked our heights for over a decade. I wasn't trying to remember. I was trying to plan. I downloaded every image and started building a reference folder. Original floor plan, Phase 1. Because I wasn't going to reclaim it by living in it. I was going to reclaim it by remaking it. They sold it for $486,000. I bought it back for $510,000 2 months later. The Grangers, young couple, no kids, never even moved in fully. Turns out they were real estate flippers who got cold feet after interest rates shifted. My offer came in fast, in cash, through a Nevada-registered holding entity named Morningside. No trace, no link, no drama. The closing agent never looked up from her screen when she said, "Congratulations, Morningside is now the official title holder of 1446 Beach Lane." I signed, thanked her, walked out. The next day, I stepped inside the house for the first time since they gave it away. It didn't feel like home. It felt like inventory. The kitchen had been gutted and upgraded. Laminate floors replaced the hardwood Dad and I installed. The attic was drywalled. The rosebush Mom adored had been pulled. The new paint was clean but charmless. Good. It made it easier to start over. I spent the next 3 weeks planning the renovation, not to restore the past, but to control the present. I wanted every inch of it to carry intention, to tell a story, not to strangers, but to them. I'd keep some details the same, the tile, the porch railings, but others would be sharp departures, modern, structured, owned. They would recognize the bones, but not the owner. And when they stepped inside again, smiling like guests who expected to be praised for their presence, they'd realize they weren't the hosts. They weren't even the reason the house existed anymore. I was. The first contractor I hired didn't know who I was. I preferred it that way. I told him the property was for an anonymous private client, someone who had childhood ties to the home and wanted to blend nostalgia with clean modernism. He nodded like he'd heard it all before, but I watched the way he handled the original blueprints, delicate, respectful. We didn't restore the house. We reasserted it. The paint went dark, charcoal slate with white trim. The original archway stayed, but the floors? Brazilian walnut. A contradiction in tone, sharp and quiet. The kitchen island was custom-poured concrete, cool to the touch and heavy with permanence. Everything about the new space rejected fragility. No glass, no pastels, no echoes of champagne toasts or wedding photo shoots. In the hallway, I kept one thing exactly the same, the height markings. They'd scrubbed the wall clean, but I had pictures. I etched the lines back, carefully, mine and Amelia's. I added the final one myself, 32 years old, 5'7". That was where my growth had stopped in their eyes. In mine, it had only just begun. Most mornings I arrived before the team. I walked each room, not to micromanage, to remember. The space where I once cried after college rejection letters now held recessed lighting and a sunlit alcove for reading. The room where Amelia staged her 10th birthday dance recital would now be a minimalist office, with blackout shades and built-in shelves, every inch measured. Once I found myself standing in the corner of what used to be my bedroom, unable to move. The wall had been knocked down to expand the ensuite bath. There was no bed anymore, just blue tape on the subfloor. I closed my eyes and pictured the bookshelf I used to keep next to the window, my high school journal tucked behind the third shelf, a dried-out prom corsage in a Ziploc under my bed. Gone. All of it. But that was the point. You cannot reclaim what was stolen by pretending nothing happened. You cannot heal by going back. You take the structure, gut the rot, and rebuild with steel. I added smart home features, subtle, expensive, unnecessary. I didn't need a voice-controlled lighting system or heated floors, but I wanted it to be out of reach, symbolically, economically. The front door now opened with a custom-coded keypad. The password, 0522. The date I learned the house had been sold. The final touch was the dining room. I had them strip it to the studs. I removed the old chandelier. In its place, a single pendant light, sleek, precise. Under it, a walnut table that seated 6. That's how many people sat at the head table at Amelia's wedding. I had the table built by a craftsman in Oregon. No nails, no glue, just interlocking joints, silent strength. It arrived in a plain crate marked "Deliver to Elise Tran, CO Morningside." When the room was complete, I stood at one end and pictured them walking in. I pictured my mother's eyes drifting to the new fixtures. I pictured my father hesitating when he saw the hall. I pictured Amelia laughing before she understood. The satisfaction wasn't in humiliating them. It was in clarity, in control. They would know what they gave away, what they assumed I would never reclaim. And I wouldn't need to raise my voice or defend my worth. The walls would do it for me. They spoke in angles and finishes, in design and discipline. One evening, just after installation wrapped, I hosted a local history tour in the neighborhood Facebook group. I posted under a fake name, said I was showcasing a restored version of a legacy home rich with emotional memory. The responses were instant. "Is this the Tran property?" one woman asked. "That was such a beautiful house." Another commented, "I heard it was sold to someone famous." I sent out a private invite to 6 guests only, my parents, Amelia and her husband, and 2 of our old neighbors. Just enough people to create weight, just enough eyes to witness the shift. I used a hired assistant to deliver the handwritten invitations, cream cardstock, no return address. They didn't recognize my handwriting. Of course they didn't. On the day of the event, I dressed like a docent. Blazer, simple jewelry, hair back. Neutral, precise, forgettable. The house was staged like a museum. No personal items, no photographs, just structure. At exactly 4 p.m., the front door opened. I didn't stand by it. I waited in the dining room, one hand resting on the back of the chair at the head of the table. I heard my mother's voice first. "Oh my God, this can't be..." Then Amelia, "Wait. This is our old house?" Silence. Then my father, low and uncertain, "Who owns this now?" They stepped in. The door closed behind them with a soft click. I didn't greet them. Not yet. I let the house do it first. They stepped inside like trespassers. Even Amelia, whose presence could usually fill a room by force of performance, looked small. Her eyes darted over the entryway like she was waiting for someone else to explain what she was seeing. No one did. I stayed in the dining room just far enough back that I could observe without being seen. That was the benefit of renovation. Sightlines could be engineered. From where I stood, I could see their expressions in the mirror I'd placed above the console table, angled for effect, reflected confusion, subtle discomfort, the same way they'd once looked at me. My father ran a hand along the banister. "It's the same wood," he murmured. My mother corrected him. "It's not. The finish is darker." But I could tell she wasn't sure. They made their way toward the kitchen slowly, touching surfaces, pretending not to be sentimental. That was always their move, rewrite the feeling before it got too loud. But this house wouldn't let them. In the living room, the layout was reversed. I'd done that on purpose. It felt familiar but wrong, like trying to hum a song in the wrong key. The fireplace mantel had been replaced with concrete, cold, permanent. Not one of their keepsakes remained. Still, they whispered to each other in that nervous way people do when they're guests in a place they can't fully read. Amelia finally spoke louder. "I think we should go. This doesn't feel right." Right on cue, I stepped out. She turned sharply, startled. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She blinked like she was looking at a ghost. "Elise?" I didn't respond to the name. I didn't need to. My mother tried to laugh. "Oh my goodness, what are you doing here?" I looked at her. "I could ask you the same." She faltered. We received an invitation. It said there was a historical showcase." "There is," I said, "a tour through memory, a study in what people choose to forget." Amelia's husband, quiet this whole time, asked, "Wait, are you the owner?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I gestured toward the hallway. You can continue if you'd like. There's more to see." They obeyed. They always obeyed when the rules were unspoken. In the guest bathroom, the tile matched the original pattern exactly, a detail they noticed. My father leaned in. "I remember installing this. You helped." I said nothing. In the hallway, they reached the etchings. My mother inhaled sharply. She didn't say my name, but I watched her hand move to her chest, the way it used to when she couldn't find the right words. 5'7", 32 years old. She looked over her shoulder, almost afraid to meet my gaze. She should have been, because I wasn't here to scream. I wasn't here to cry. I was here to make sure every unspoken wound had a physical counterpart, a real-world echo. They made their way back to the dining room like it was instinct. We always ended family gatherings at the table, holidays, announcements, apologies. I gestured to the chairs. "Sit." They did. The silence stretched. It wasn't awkward. It was sharp, alive. "I thought this house was sold," Amelia finally said. "It was," I replied. "But flippers aren't known for emotional attachment. I made them a better offer." My father cleared his throat. "You bought it back?" "No," I said. "I reclaimed it." My mother looked at me, her voice small. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Why didn't you?" Her lips parted, then closed. "I would have loved to say goodbye to this place," I said. "You took that from me, so I took something else. The illusion that you ever had the final say." Amelia crossed her arms. "This feels vindictive." I smiled faintly. "That's because it is." She looked away. They didn't apologize. Not yet. That would come later. But I wasn't after remorse. I was after acknowledgement that this wasn't about a house. It was about what they thought they could give away without consequence. I walked to the sideboard, poured 4 cups of tea from a silver kettle I placed intentionally in view, the same one they gifted me 10 years ago and then forgot existed. I placed the cups on the table, one by one, like offerings. No sugar, no milk, just bitterness served warm. They each took a cup. None of them drank. I finally sat, folded my hands, spoke quietly. "You taught me that silence is the polite choice, that swallowing disappointment is easier than causing a scene, that I should be grateful for what isn't promised and invisible when it suits you." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "But I've built a life that doesn't require your validation, and I don't need this house to feel whole. I needed you to see what it means when someone you underestimated builds without your blueprint." They stared. The tea cooled, and I let them sit in it. Amelia was the first to speak. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice wobbling. "You ambushed us. This feels cruel." I looked at her without blinking. "You think cruelty is surprise?" She flinched. Behind her, my father stood slowly, still holding his untouched tea. "You've made your point, Elise. We didn't tell you because we didn't want the drama. We thought you'd overreact." I tilted my head. "And yet you still sent an invitation." He hesitated. "We didn't know it was you." That, I believed. The handwriting, the alias, the trust account. I had gone out of my way to make sure this confrontation wasn't optional. It was going to happen, but it would be my scene, my stage, and they'd show up thinking it was a celebration, like I had, at Amelia's wedding. I stood, walked over to the living room wall, the one beside the fireplace. "This wall used to hold the family photos," I said. "Your wedding picture, our first Christmas, the day you brought Amelia home from the hospital. There used to be a photo of the 3 of us here." I touched the smooth paint. "It's gone now, because that memory wasn't accurate." My mother's voice cracked. "Elise, we did what we thought was best. For who? I turned. No one answered. I walked down the hallway. This closet, I called out, was the one I used to hide in when you and Dad fought. Silence followed. Amelia would cry and I'd hold her hands over her ears. I was 8. Still, no one spoke. Back in the dining room, my steps echoed now. The room didn't hold warmth. It held truth. You told me the house was mine, I said. Do you remember? My mother nodded slowly. Yes. You said, you're the one who cares about it. You're the one who deserves it. And then you sold it without a word because Amelia needed a prettier venue. Amelia's face twisted. I didn't ask you to do that. No, I said. You didn't have to. You never had to ask for anything. That's the point. The air thinned. I walked to the front door, opened it. I didn't invite you here to yell, I said. I didn't even invite you to apologize. I invited you so you could sit in the silence you trained me to survive. They watched me from their chairs. I invited you so the house could remind you what it cost to forget me. You gave it away for free. I made it expensive again. I stepped aside. You can leave now. They hesitated. My mother rose first. Her hands trembled as she passed me. My father followed, silent, jaw locked. Amelia lingered. Her eyes scanned the room like she was still searching for the version of this story where she was the victim. Why do you even care? She asked. You've always been the strong one. You always walked away. I nodded. I did, and look where it brought me. Outside, their car idled. They didn't drive off right away. From the window, I saw them sitting in silence, my mother wiping at her eyes, my father staring forward, hands gripping the steering wheel, Amelia typing something furiously on her phone. Probably a group chat with distant cousins, explaining her version before mine could reach them. I didn't care. This wasn't about retelling the past. It was about rewriting the frame around it. The walls held their story once. Now, they held mine. They didn't thank me. They didn't call the next day. No flowers, no letters, no requests to talk. Just silence, the same kind they'd once used to erase me. Only now it arrived dressed in shame, not superiority. I kept the house for 3 more months, long enough for the story to circulate. The neighbors talked. One of them, Mrs. Halverson, called me the quiet daughter with the sharp eyes. Another said it was poetic, how the house found its way back to the one who actually respected it. I let the rumors spread. I never confirmed a thing. It wasn't for them. It was for me. And when I sold the house again, I sold it on my terms. No rush. No private buyer discounts. I kept the trust in place, listed it discreetly, and when the final offer cleared, $682,000 cash, I accepted without hesitation. Not because I needed the money, because I was finished. They'd sold it without asking. I'd bought it without announcing. They used it as currency. I used it as closure. A month later, I hosted a dinner at my new place in Capitol Hill. Smaller, modern, all glass and steel, no memory residue in the corners, no ghosts in the hallways. I invited colleagues, friends, people who'd seen my late nights, my early drafts, my version of hard work, not people who called me strong only after they'd broken me. Halfway through dessert, I got a text from an unknown number. We didn't handle it right. We thought we were doing the best we could. I hope you know it was never about choosing her over you. I stared at the message. Then I deleted it. Some things don't deserve replies. Amelia sent a different message 2 weeks later. A photo of a blank journal with the caption, "Trying to be better. Don't worry, I won't tag you." That one I didn't delete, but I didn't respond either. Let her write her new beginning. Mine had already started. There's a quote I once read during a late-night drafting session. Revenge is not in returning pain. It's in removing permission. They no longer had access to the version of me that asked for approval, or explanations, or space. I built something stronger, quieter, mine. And as I locked my apartment door that night and turned off the lights, I thought of the house one last time, not as a symbol of what they took, but as proof of what I reclaimed. Not brick by brick, but silence by silence.